Hey everyone, welcome back to our neuroscience series. In the last video, we talked about the structure of a neuron. Now it's time to see them in action. Today, we're covering what happens billions of times a second in your brain, neural communication, the way neurons send messages using electrical and chemical signals. Neurons communicate in two main steps. The first step is an electrical signal called an action potential travels along the axon. The second step is a chemical signal that occurs at the synapse when neurotransmitters are released. Let's break both of these down. At rest, a neuron is like a tiny battery. It has a voltage across its membrane called the resting membrane potential, usually around -70 millivolts. This means the inside of the neuron is negatively charged compared to the outside. Why? Because of ion distribution. More sodium ions outside, more potassium ions inside. The sodium-potassium pump maintains this balance by pumping 3 sodiums out and 2 potassiums in, using ATP. This electrical charge difference sets the stage for the neuron to fire. When a neuron is stimulated past a certain threshold, around -55 millivolts, an action potential begins. Here's what happens step by step. First, depolarization. Voltage-gated sodium channels open. Sodium rushes into the cell. The inside becomes more positive, up to +30 or +40 millivolts. Then, repolarization. Sodium channels close, potassium channels open. Potassium flows out, bringing the charge back down. Thirdly, hyperpolarization. Too much potassium leaves. The neuron becomes temporarily more negative than resting. And finally, return to resting potential. The sodium-potassium pumps restore the balance. Neuron is ready to fire again. This entire cycle happens in about 1 to 2 milliseconds. The action potential travels down the axon like a wave. In myelinated axon, it jumps between the nodes around VA in a process called saltatory conduction, which is faster and more energy efficient. In unmyelinated axons, the signal moves continuously but slower. When the action potential reaches the axon terminals, the electrical signal triggers the release of neurotransmitters, which are chemical messengers. Here's how that works. First, the action potential causes calcium channels to open. Second, calcium enters the terminal, promoting synaptic vesicles to fuse with the membrane. Third, the neurotransmitters are released into the synaptic cleft. And finally, they bind to the receptors on the postsynaptic neuron. Depending on the type of neurotransmitter, the signal can either excite or inhibit the next neuron. Here are a few important neurotransmitters. Glutamate, the brain's main excitatory neurotransmitter. GABA, the main inhibitory neurotransmitter. Dopamine, involved in reward, motivation, and movement. Serotonin, mood, appetite, and sleep. Acetylcholine, important for muscle movement and memory. Neurotransmitters imbalances are linked to conditions like depression, schizophrenia, and Parkinson's disease. Once the message is delivered, the neurotransmitters are either broken down by enzymes, reabsorbed by the presynaptic neuron, which is called reuptake, or simply diffuse away. This clears the synapse for the next message. Let's recap the process of how neurons communicate. Neuron is at rest. Stimulus causes an action potential. Action potential travels down the axon. At the axon terminal, it triggers neurotransmitters release. Neurotransmitter cross the synapse and bind to receptors. The signal is either excitatory or inhibitory. Neurotransmitters are removed to reset the synapse. And this entire cycle can repeat hundreds of times per second. Neurons may be tiny, but their communication system is powerful. Every thought, emotion, and movement you ever had started with the electrical chemical signals. In the next video, we'll explore neurotransmitters in more depth, how they influence behavior, emotion, and mental health. Thank you for watching, and your brain is always talking. Let's keep listening.